Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of CBD Talk Podcast. And look who we have. We have our Harley back. And but we're not going to have our Harley for long in Colorado. So what's happening? Tell us what's happening.
So next week, going ahead and make the move out to Pennsylvania. The East Coast has made a lot of progress in the hemp industry. They're starting to make progress in the cannabis industry as well. A lot of them are medical friendly, but not really any of them are recreationally friendly yet. So they're still opening up to the idea of letting really just about anybody grow. So long story short, last year we did a test plot on about 5 acres with a new variety of seed just to see how it would react and make sure it would do okay in Pennsylvania. We had pretty good results, so this year we're going out and we're going to actually tend to the farm. Last year it was pretty much just putting seeds out there and letting them grow rabid and just to see how everything reacted, and everything looked good. So we're going to go out there. We're going to do about 7 acres. We're working on doing certifications for seed. So a lot of people don't know, if you're growing hemp, a lot of the new hemp farmers, you need to grow certified seed to stay compliant with any of the regulations.
The Department of Ag?
Department of Ag, whoever the governor group is for that state. Every state's got different laws when it comes to this hemp. So we're working out there with the Pennsylvania people. They also gave us the approval to start doing extractions out there. As far as we know, so far there's only 2 extraction companies in Pennsylvania working with CBD. Only CBD. There's some that are working with THC and CBD, but that market is so controlled that they have to stay within their small demographics. So with the new hemp farm bill and everything else coming out, we're looking to really break through nationally, where we'll be able to not have to have product grown in a certain state to sell it in that state. The way that we're working on overcoming that is pretty much documentation. So tracking everything from seed to sale, just like it's done in the medical cannabis industry, to assure that you're getting a quality product, that everything is consistent, which is probably the biggest problem, is consistency. Everybody's just doing their own thing, making a product, and everybody's saying it's the same product. Everything depends on your starting material and what you're using, and we just want to prove that to everybody by actually documenting it for the first time.
Well, there's something that is interesting that I don't think a lot of people know about, and that's when it comes to oil. We all know oil is different in different batches. It has different terpenes, it has different cannabinoid profiles, things like that. But I don't think people understand there's a percentage that goes along with the oil.
Of course.
So explain that to them, please, because I know this is going to be new for a lot of them.
So the way that I like to look at it, you grow your flower. So the starting base is just any type of flower. The way that most people are extracting is they pack a column full of the flower and they run a solvent, whether it's CO2 or butane or any other hydrocarbon substance, and extract all of the cannabinoids from the flower. When that passes through the system, it gets collected in a pot in the bottom where there's no flowers, there's no stems, or any vegetation whatsoever, because the filters that are used in that process. In that process, you're pulling through not just all the cannabinoids, but you're also pulling through anything else left on the plant. So if people weren't flushing their plant, which means using no nutrients and just regular water for the last 2 to 4 weeks of its life cycle to push all of the nutrients out of the plant, then that can get pulled through as well as heavy metals or pesticides and stuff they use on the plant.
So you're saying that the growers need to So you're saying that the growers need to The right way to do it is for the last 2 weeks, just water.
Just water.
Okay,
Correct.
because it's flushing it.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it pushes everything out of the buds, and you don't get a contaminated substance.
Okay, so if they weren't flushing, then what happens?
If you're not flushing it, then you're still going to have nitrogen, potassium, calcium, the three main ingredients that you need when growing any plant, can have very high levels inside of those plants, which can cause a lot of problems. Mold is a really big issue. It comes with moisture, but it also comes when there's other additives in there to help bacteria start to form into bigger substances. So you want to start with the flush product. Once you run this stuff through the machine, like I said, some of the plant fats and acids and everything else, they also come through with that extract. So they go into a pot in the bottom. Then that pot is heated a little bit to get your solvent, your butane, your CO2, hexane, whatever you're using, to evaporate. So you're left with a crude oil. That's what is called crude oil in our industry, as I've heard the most. And that is usually around 65 to 70% or lower.
And what color is that?
That's more of a dark substance. It's going to be more of a brown. When I say more of a brown, it's kind of an orangish tinted brown. What you're really looking for is more of a yellowish tint. So the more yellow and the more clear that substance is, usually it's going to be a lot higher quality. There's other ways that people can be tricked by somebody adding MCT oil or some really thin...
Kind of like watering it down?
Exactly, just like a thin filler. Diluting it down to where it looks a lot cleaner. We see this with vape cartridges a lot. So a lot of people will take crude oil and they'll mix
and we're saying crude oil, we're talking about crude cannabis oil. So
the crude oil, and they can dilute it with anything from VG, MCT oil, and things like that to make it look a lot cleaner. That's something that we're trying to knock out of this industry, because if done properly, the crude oil is just a starting product for your final product, for your final high quality product that can be put out. So after you get your crude oil, there's lots of steps to be taken after that. First is your dewaxing process. And what that does is it takes out the fat lipids and any of the fats and amino acids that are still in the plant. And this takes a bit of time because you have to keep it at a very cold temperature, sub-zero temperatures, in a mixture of ethanol or some other type of solvent, so where all your fats and lipids will float to the top. So if you look at a glass beaker that is going through a dewaxing process, you will have a very clear thin layer on the bottom and a very thick cakey layer on the top.
Oh, okay. So kind of like when you're making chicken soup and you make a broth out of the carcass and it's been in the refrigerator or it's been sitting all night, you got the fat sitting up on top and then the rest of the broth is down below.
Exactly.
Okay.
And with broth, that can be okay. You can have some of that in there when you eat it. You get a lot of the flavor from the fats. But when you're inhaling something, generally, if you ask most people, they don't want to be inhaling fats into their lungs. It's not something that just always gets naturally absorbed by the body, and it's not necessarily used for anything too useful when ingested in that form. Eating it, completely safe. I don't like to smoke anything with any fats in it. So there's a dewaxing process. When that's done, that you get your distillate. So the way they do that is they reheat it because you have to let your extract sit in a bath of frozen or like cold ethanol. So then you have to use a rotovap technique to evaporate out all of the ethanol. After that, you're left with what's called a distillate. So
that's still a liquid?
Yes, distillate is still a liquid. If anybody's ever been into a dispensary, or you can even look around online, waxes tend to be about 60% of the price of a distillate. The reason is because the distillate is just
the wax
cleaner. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's usually a lot higher testing. Distillates usually get between 80% and up.
Mhm.
We're starting to see more of that in the hemp industry, but when those products seem to come out, now there's a lot of manufacturers that want to buy up all of that product.
Oh.
So it's getting hard for smaller companies to source very clean product.
Yeah.
So
So they
what
just
we're
need
taking,
some really good extractors who can do that.
yep. We just need to get the information out there. These are easy processes that your most basic lab tech knows how to do, even if they do not work in the cannabis or hemp industry.
Mhm.
These are just normal processes that labs use to clean up any type of material. So once you get your distillate, that's a very high-end product. Now that we're getting farther along and there's a little bit more money in this industry and a little bit more research and people are more interested, we've started to get into chromatography.
Ooh.
Chromatography is what they use to the beginning steps of really mapping out somebody's DNA, all your drug testing that gets done for any type of like government positions where they send any urine collections or blood collections into a testing facility. Usually that's how it's done, is they use chromatography. What it does is it separates molecules by weight, by using gravity pretty much, and creating different flow rates for different molecules. So in this process, now there's equipment that uses sensors that are accurate enough to detect the differences between not just CBD and THC, but also THCA, CBDV, CBG,
Nice.
and actually being able to map out how much these molecules weigh and being able to separate them.
Wow.
So now you can get a finalized product that you can extract the THC if you don't want THC, or you can extract CBD if you don't want CBD. And what this does is it just further refines the distillate to where it even starts to take out the yellow tint color that comes in your high quality extracts.
Well, yeah, because that tint is coming from a terpene or something.
They're called, I just found this out recently. I was working with Summit Extraction Labs out in Boulder, and I did a class with Corey out there, and I was lucky enough to, the day I was there, the chromatography, the guy that runs the company that makes the chromatography machines came in and was explaining it, that those are called cratinoids.
Oh, awesome. Okay. What is a cratinoid?
I'm still doing a lot of research. It's still new, but
so what people do know,
what people do know about cratinoids is it's the same thing that gives carrots their color, the pigments in carrots.
Interesting. Okay.
So when you start to refine it that far, you start to get almost a completely clear substance, and that's the main way people are starting to get isolates. When we first started getting isolates in the day, they kind of had a yellowish tint to them, whether that be because of a little bit of gas still left in them that they use for the crystallization process, or still having the cratinoids. But as we're getting further and further with the technology, we're able to just separate things out more by molecular weight, which is really what's changing everything. Everything that we separated out used to be dependent on its
boiling points. Yeah.
So we would use temperatures to separate and fractionate things out.
Yeah, which is only accurate to a point.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really cool. So do you think at some point, like how we had the periodic table of the elements, we're going to have a periodic table of cannabinoids?
Oh, I think it's coming sooner than what a lot of people are thinking.
That's so cool!
We just had a conversation with one of the testing labs out here in Colorado's Botanicore, correct? That they just added some new testing equipment, and I could be wrong on the number, but they added around 15 more cannabinoids and a lot more terpenes that they can currently test for. So they, as far as I know, they've been leading the industry in the technology for the testing, and they're updating their equipment, every few months.
Yeah.
So it's brand new. It's not completely accurate. We've had THC testing and CBD testing now, 10 plus years, and you got to be careful when you're judging your percentages, because there's a standard in this industry where it's plus minus 15% variance.
Oh.
So that's a big deal when most of the products on the market don't go over 30%.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's saying something's 30% with a plus minus 15% variance,
it could
realistically be 15%.
Oh my gosh. And so that 30% is what are we talking about? 30% cannabinoid versus other stuff?
Yes. So what I was using was like a sample of a flower test. So if you grow some flower and you send it into Botanicor or any other testing facility, they test that flower for all the new cannabinoids they have. 30% total THC is very high in my opinion. And I don't even think it's
doesn't take much to knock me out, but I mean, yeah.
I don't think it's even, it's so high that I don't even think it's really too realistic.
Yeah.
And I've seen this all the time with being so close to other labs because the numbers just don't match. It's simple math. Yeah. If you put 1 pound of this flower that's supposedly 30% into an extraction tube and you're making THC isolate diamonds like a lot of people are, if you do the math, you should get 300 grams of the THC. It's nowhere near that.
Yeah.
So that tells you right there that something's off with the testing, and they're not getting exact numbers. It's getting very close.
Or they're using that variance to their favor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really good marketing tool. You know, you can't be mad at them, but
yeah, I can. I can. You don't have to be, but
you can.
I can be pissed off.
You can definitely tell. Just you have to go in and see the product. You just have to know what you're purchasing. Do some research. Know what you're looking for. Usually get what you pay for. It's no different in this industry. You know, if somebody's telling you they have $60 ounces on a recreational cannabis side, it's probably worth $60. Yeah, when there's other things on the market that cost $200 for the same exact weight of something, there's obviously going to be a big difference in quality. Yeah. You know, you see it with diamonds. You know, a diamond could be worth $5. And a diamond could be worth $10,000, depending on the quality and the clarity and the cut of the diamond. Yeah. It's the same way in the cannabis industry. It's just how much love and attention gets put into that product is what you're going to get out.
Okay, so let's see. So when you have a crude oil that's 65%. What's the other 35%?
So, in my opinion, usually most of that is a solvent. Just because it gets expensive. So those processes that I was talking about after the extraction process, the equipment is very expensive, and staying compliant with Department of Ag, FDA starts to get involved at that point because you're pretty much creating medicines or you're considered on the same level as pharmaceutical.
Anything that you can ingest, you know, can go under FDA. I mean, because if it's a dietary supplement or if it's, you know, a nutritional or anything, I mean, they have the right to do anything they want. So with it, right at this point.
Yeah, so. And from what I've seen with the FDA, and they're very strict on their policies, but they tend to really put magnifying glasses on certain companies. And what I've seen,
especially ones that are making claims.
Exactly, the ones that are making claims, the ones that are saying that they're using breaking edge science and making new discoveries and you know, creating all this new research, but with no documentation.
No studies. No double blinds, no triple blinds.
Yeah, there's good people out there doing things the right way, and the FDA you have to stay compliant, no matter who you are. It's just part of the rules.
Well, when the outgoing FDA commissioner talked to Ways and Means Commission, the last meeting he had with them, he was very specific, telling them that we are exercising our right to enforce our enforcement rights in a way where we are enforcing the CBD rules when it comes to people who are making claims. And so what immediately comes to my mind is if someone is making claims, if a company is making claims, they're doing it to get your money. And they're going to do it as long as they can until the FDA shuts them down. So they're about the money. They're not about long term. There's a lot of great information out there, and it really is up to the consumer to research and determine whether or not they want to try CBD or not. It is not the company's responsibility to tell you to use CBD and say, oh, it'll do this, it'll do that, or it'll do the other. It's your decision whether or not you want to try CBD. And the FDA is respecting the companies that aren't trying to scare you into using their product or make promises that scientifically can't be made yet. Now, I'm not saying that CBD doesn't do all that stuff. It does, and that's why there's podcasts and literature and studies and everything like that that can tell you this. But a company cannot do that, and if they do, they're breaking the law. So because the FDA can come in and shut them down. So if you want to work with a company with integrity, you can't get your product from a company that is making claims because there is no integrity there. And, yes, CBD is amazing. The endocannabinoid system is an integral part of your body. Cannabinoids fuel that endocannabinoid system. I don't have it plugged in. That's why it keeps going blank. Sorry. So the endocannabinoids and phytocannabinoids fuel your endocannabinoid system so that your body works in a regulated way. It's necessary for your endocannabinoid system to be efficient. And if it's deficient, then you need to supplement your diet with cannabinoids. So it's pretty easy. It's pretty straightforward. But your company has to be a company with integrity. And that means you either that these people, if someone comes to a company, a manufacturer, that they have resources for them, that's great. But you don't fucking plaster cancer cure or any other cure on your website.
Instant headache cure.
Yeah, exactly. That's not what you do. That's not a company working with integrity.
If it sounds too good to be true, then odds are it's too good to be true.
Yeah, and another thing that we were talking about, we preach a lot about COAs and things like that, but we also have to realize that Photoshop is a real thing, and that there are companies out there that are changing information on their COAs.
On those COAs, you can directly call the company that is on the COA with that number. It will have an ID number for that test. It does not cost anything. You can call these companies and they can tell you if those results are accurate. This is something I greatly encourage. And if you guys do come across people where you're finding changed COAs, put it out there to the public.
Yeah.
Let people know. Let law enforcement know. Let whoever you need to know, because it's just gonna hurt more people.
Yeah.
It's the wrong thing
to
do.
Let me know, and I'll freaking call the FDA. So, because I already work with them with my job, so in a different industry. But when companies are doing that, they are literally hurting people. Because here's what happens: people will take that product, they won't get a result because the levels are nowhere near where the COA says they are, and then they will go, oh, CBD or cannabinoids are bullshit. They don't do anything for you. And then they walk away from something that if they had the proper amount, it could have really made a significant difference in their lives. It could have corrected deficiencies that are in their endocannabinoid system. I mean, maybe not. Maybe their endocannabinoid system is fine. But the fact that they're using a product that is a lie right off the bat, you got to get rid of these bad actors. It is not right for them to be duping the public.
Yep.
So,
and I think it's important for people to know that it's, the CBD is helping. But it's not just the CBD. A lot of these
Mhm.
products that are in our industry now, there has been so much research and development and studies done that they are made with ingredients that have the proper synergy with
Mhm.
CBD to help with the ailments that you're trying
Yeah.
to really get help with.
Yeah, and we've had plenty of people on the podcast that that have shared their experience with Crohn's disease and with anxiety and with like asthma for me, with skin disorders. I mean, just like over and over and over and over again. We're not saying that it doesn't work, but we're saying that companies really can't advertise that because they're there's just that lack of
Restricted.
yeah if they're following the law, they can't do that. They just really can't, and you really need to leave it up to the consumer to do some research and decide whether it's right for them or not. Now that doesn't mean that when you call them up, if you ask them questions and they answer, that's a different thing. We're talking about it cannot be on labels, it cannot be on websites, it cannot be in advertisements. If you're having a conversation with someone, they can say, well, for me, this is what I did, and this is how it helped. That is not saying something out of place. That's saying that this is what worked for me. So or this is what worked for my dad, or whatever. But you just can't use it as a marketing tool.
There's so when it comes to consumer research, there's the consumer doing his own research. There's lots of options now. Our podcast, of course, if you guys go and look at the other episodes, there's everything from nurses to single parents to scientists,
PhDs.
So
Yeah.
you can find somebody that you can relate to and understand what they're putting out there, because some people don't fully grab everything that I'm saying. Some people don't fully grasp what Don's saying. That's why we like
That's
to get
usually because I swear so much. So.
That's why we like to get a wide variety of people on here, so you can actually see how it affects all these different walks of life and how all these people from different walks of life, when you really break it down, have the same story.
Yeah.
And it's that collection of information that's really going to help people. You guys can look back on our episodes. Well, this person has this problem. They took this much. I could probably take the same amount and see if there's any help. There's lots of websites now. There's
a cannabis clinicians group in different states. There's professionals that's what they do is they specifically work with cannabis and cannabinoids to help people. And so there's on their websites, because they're not a company wholesaling wholesaling products. They are clinicians, educators. There's resources pages that you can go and see all sorts of studies and all sorts of data on dosing and what different cannabinoids are good for different things. I mean, that is the place. That is a great place to find resources.
All the way to the extent where, the network is getting pretty big in this hemp industry, even with the nurses and doctors and everything, to the point where if you do enough research, like we said, companies can't really make too many claims, but especially with like interactions with medicines.
Yeah.
A lot of people are scared, especially, when they got children on medications, because their doctor says, don't really mix this with anything. Don't take anything else. That doctor's going to say that about anything, whether it's CBD, whether it's apple cider, it doesn't matter. He's going to tell you, you should probably just stick to that same regimen. But there is lots of families, mothers, that you can catch up on their stories, and they can tell you specifically, this did not have any negative side effects when used with this medication.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful, not being a physician when you're telling people all these things. That's why we said, we like to get all these people on here, and it's out there. There's some medications it does affect.
Yeah.
So we're not just selling a dream where this thing is going to work with everything all the time. There's times that some medications that it does affect, and you just need to do the research and really get more than one opinion.
Yeah, we had Rebecca converse with a nurse, and she went through a list of contraindications. And she told us, if it First of all, if there's anything that says do not take with grapefruit, you do not take it with cannabis. But here's the other thing, is that if you have a doctor that, so like one of the things is blood thinners. Blood thinners you can't take with grapefruit. But if you have a doctor that you can work closely with, maybe that's something that he would be willing to say, okay, well, you know what? We're going to test your blood every other day. We're going to see how this CBD is working, and maybe we can, taper off on that Coumadin or that warfarin or something like that. I mean, like with Jackson, with this bag of bones over here, he's on insulin, and you guys, I put a episode up a couple weeks back, or about a month ago, I guess maybe, about how they lowered his insulin, another cc. So that's went from 14 to 13, 13 to 12, 12 to 11, and now I'm taking him back this next week. So we're doing it every 2 weeks now, because it's just working so fast that, by the time where I take him into the doctor, they're like, yeah, he really needs to drop his insulin, and so we went from 4 weeks to 3 weeks and now to 2 weeks because it's just working so fast. So I have a vet who is willing to test more often, and if we bring him in on Monday and they're bringing it and it's down again to like 50 when it's supposed to be 100, and they lower it again, then we're going to move it to 1 week. And because she's fine with it, she's like, hey, this is amazing. He's, his levels are down to where they were almost 2 years ago. So she's like, this is great. So she's willing to work with us. So you might be able to find a doctor who is willing to work with you and say, hey, can I try this? Can we just test more often? Is there, I want to see if this is going to work for me, because I'd rather take this than rat poison, or take this within something that has a significant side effect. But you have to work with a doctor to do it.
Not a salesperson.
No. And you'll find more and more out there. You just got to do your research to find them.
Use Google. Use Google. That's all I can tell people. There's more and more seminars popping up, even in small towns. There's small towns, major cities, and there are places you wouldn't even suspect. There's a lot of hair salons. There's a lot of massage therapists. Any place that's really starting to sell any type of CBD products are starting to do education in the community about it, because they're starting to, like I say, actually get the research, get the proof in the pudding, as you would say, that it's actually working.
And here's another thing. If you have a group of people that you want to have information, you want to have someone come and talk to you, there are always people who would be more than willing to come and talk to your group or organization to give you some information and some education. This is not an uncommon thing. Whether they do it like in a webinar format, where you guys are all in a room and they're up on the screen and you can ask them questions and you guys can have a dialogue, or if they come in person, bring samples, whatever.
It's normal.
It's very normal. It's not hard to do, and we'll easily be able to hook you up with someone who can do it, either via like a Zoom or something like that, or someone coming up to you. We'll find someone. If you have a group of people that wants information, we'll find someone to get you the information. So.
These groups are growing. And everything from, like I said, single parents, all the way to nursing graduates. Mm-hmm. There's not just the graduates, the teachers at the Denver School of Nursing. I've seen a few of them in more and more and more of these seminars, and taking that information back and really using it. And that's something that was prohibited 4 years ago. We used to have a teacher come up and actually have us give a short presentation to her graduate students, because the school wouldn't even allow us to come down in there. Yeah. Now it's completely different. The schools are allowing people to come in and give seminars and everything. So it's happening more and more and more, and it's easily accessible.
Yeah, and my sister, who has her nursing license, she took some of her CE units in cannabis medicine. Yep. So there's
online courses now that you can even take for continued education credits.
That's how she did hers. Crazy. Was that and she said it's just on there with all the other CEs that you can choose from. So she's like, oh yeah, I'm choosing this one. So it's the landscape is different than what it was even, like he said, 4 years ago. It is changing rapidly. More and more information is coming out. We are slowly catching up to where other countries are. They're finally getting to the point where they're acknowledging that, okay, yeah, there is an endocannabinoid system. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't make it disappear. I guess we better learn something about it. So it's coming faster. Is it fast enough? No, no. We've got countries like Canada that's, they're going full bore.
Light years.
Yeah.
Light years ahead of us.
So we are way behind our neighbors to the north.
But that's what's so awesome about these new seminars and all of these trade shows that go on. So at these trade shows, there's a lot of good information. So the trade shows used to just be for vendors. Nowadays, I believe that it's more for educators than it is just to go and purchase products.
Yeah. I was a moderator for one last September in Southern California, and the people that were in the audience that are asking questions were not industry people. They were people. I did one vets, pets, and CBD, and they were asking specific questions about their pet and how can this, that, and the other, which is just beautiful. I mean, so if there is an event in your city, go. It's worth it. It's the education that you can get is amazing. And I'm not talking about from the booths, although you
not
can get
from the salespeople.
Yeah. I'm talking about go. The reason that they have people speaking, there's a very specific directive when it comes to the people that are on the panels, and it is not about selling their product. It is about educating the public, and so that's where you want to ask your questions, is in the panel discussions or after a speaker, because they're not there to talk about their product. Their company name will be on there, of course, because that's fair.
Part of the show.
Yeah, and that's kind of their compensation for participating and sharing their knowledge, is you understand that that's who they're connected with. And
I want to know that person's company, because those are the people that
that's
are
where I want to buy.
Helping us, so that's who I want to help out to.
Exactly. That's who we want to buy from, are these educated people that are sharing their knowledge. And so if you can find one, go.
If you see Indo Expo, if you see any of the expos going on, like I said, look them up. It's more than just a big place to go shop and buy new products.
Yeah.
It's a huge place for education now. Probably the most accurate information that you're going to get in most states.
Yeah, I completely 100% agree. Completely. So anyway, so we'll be getting more news from Harley on the road, and trying to get his setup together so where he can be doing episodes from Pennsylvania, and I'll be continuing doing them from here in Colorado, and we're gonna try to double down, but let's give him a little time to get situated in his new home, and he's still boxing shit up. He's got a couple 18-hour days.
Yes,
so
man.
it's gonna be a little bit, but anyway, so we wish you well, and we don't want him to move, but it's all good. And
anybody needs me back in here for Denver for anything, you need anybody to talk, help out, hold doors, get a hold of me. I'm looking for any reason to come back.
all right, guys. Nice talking to you. Thanks for enjoying our casual setting today. And remember, stay happy, stay healthy.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.